So here's a question. What happens when the most emotionally unavailable genius in the multiverse finally decides to grow? You'd think it'd be great for the people around him, right? Not exactly. Season 8 of Rick and Morty promised fans a deep dive into family dynamics and emotional healing. But the way things played out, it was more like Rick's therapy session, with the Smith family as his emotional punching bag. If you were hoping this season would give Morty, Summer, Beth, and Jerry a spotlight, well, you might want to temper those expectations. Let's break down how Rick and Morty Season 8 nailed Rick's emotional arc, but kinda left the rest of the family gasping for air. When showrunner Scott Marder teased a return to form this season, fans got excited. After all, following multiversal chaos and timeline-shattering episodes in prior seasons, the idea of refocusing on the Smith family felt refreshing. The season's final episode, Hot Rick, wrapped things up by showing Rick saying goodbye to his own memory projections, including one of his long-deceased wife, Diane. This wasn't a big cosmic battle. It was intimate, emotional, a new side of Rick, but as touching as it was to watch Rick become more emotionally self-aware, it's hard to ignore the glaring fact that the rest of the cast mostly served as background noise to his transformation. One of the strongest episodes early in the season, Valkyrick, featured Rick finally stepping up as a father figure to Space Beth. For longtime viewers, it was a nice callback to unresolved threads. But even in that storyline, Rick's growth overshadowed any emotional clarity for Beth herself. She had a major role. Sure, but it felt like the episode was more about how Rick saw her than how she saw herself. And that's a pattern throughout Season 8. Even when the show gave the spotlight to other characters, it was mostly in service of understanding Rick better, not really giving those characters room to breathe or grow on their own. Let's talk about Morty. Poor Morty. After everything he's endured across timelines, alternate versions of himself, clones, and God knows how many brushes with trauma, you'd expect some payoff. But his big moment came in an episode called Morty Daddy, featuring Morty Jr., a character we hadn't seen in a decade. The episode felt like it wanted to be a touching father-son reunion, but instead came off as disconnected and weirdly hollow. Morty didn't get to process any of his own traumas or confront his growing detachment from Rick. He was just there, a sidekick in his own subplot. And what about Summer? She's always been a low-key MVP of the series, but in Season 8, she got memory wiped in the premiere and then kind of disappeared into the background. For a character who's proven she can hold her own across galactic wars and philosophical debates, this felt like a major downgrade. Her arc had potential, especially in the early episodes, but any meaningful development was erased. Literally, the one time she starts showing signs of emotional growth, poof, reset button. It was funny in the moment, sure, but long-term, not satisfying. Now here's the twist. Jerry actually came out of Season 8 looking better than most. His solo-heavy episode, Nomortland, let him show off some real depth. For once, Jerry wasn't the butt of the joke. He was the whole storyline, and it worked. He explored his own values, faced adversity without Rick's interference, and even earned a little audience respect. It felt like a rare moment of personal agency in a season where most characters were just reacting to Rick's mess. So while the show was busy turning Rick into a complex anti-hero on a healing journey, Jerry quietly became one of the most human characters in the room. So did Rick really change? Yeah. He's more open. He cries. He tries to care. And that's a huge leap for a guy who used to casually abandon timelines and erase memories like clearing his browser history. He's having real conversations now. Awkward, uncomfortable, but real. In Hot Rick, saying goodbye to Memory Diane showed he's trying to let go of his pain and stop letting grief dictate his life. It's meaningful character work, and it felt earned. The problem? That same emotional growth was a one-way street. He grew, everyone else stayed stuck. And this brings us to the season's central issue: emotional imbalance. The show has always danced on that line between irreverent comedy and gut-punching pathos. But in Season 8, the balance tipped hard in one direction. It became Rick's redemption tour. That's not inherently bad, but it did come at a cost. When the story centers around one character's journey so completely, it risks turning everyone else into supporting roles in his story. The family became sounding boards, emotional mirrors, punchlines, and for a show that once celebrated its ensemble cast, that shift felt off. Don't get it twisted. Season 8 was still packed with clever writing, trippy sci-fi concepts, and hilarious moments. From sentient Christmas trees to alternate memory wars, the show stayed true to its bizarre roots. And Rick's transformation wasn't fake or shallow, it was genuinely engaging. But character development isn't just about one guy becoming less toxic. If anything, Rick and Morty thrives most when every member of the Smith family is on a journey. That's what made earlier seasons resonate so deeply, even when things got weird. Everyone had skin in the game. This time, not so much. So what's next for Rick and Morty? The season finale left a lot of emotional loose ends. Beth's psyche seems shattered. Summer's arc is non-existent. Morty's closure was forced. And Jerry's doing okay, but is still Jerry. As Rick continues his journey toward emotional balance, Season 9 has a big task ahead. Bring the rest of the family with him. Because if Rick is the only one growing, then maybe it's not growth. It's just isolation in a shinier package. The fans are ready for more. More Morty, more Beth, more Summer. More of that messy, hilarious family dynamic that made this show unforgettable in the first place. What's wild is that Rick didn't necessarily intend to sideline his family. He actually thought he was helping. And that's kind of the tragic part. In Hot Rick, we saw him literally talk to a memory version of his dead wife in a pocket universe just to find closure. It was emotional, raw, and a huge step forward for him. But while he was sorting out his grief, his real-life daughter, Beth, was slowly losing her grip on reality thanks to fractured memories he basically force-fed her. It raises the question, can healing even count if it happens at the expense of everyone around you? Let's be real. Part of the appeal of Rick and Morty has always been its dark humor and refusal to coddle the audience. The show leans into discomfort and moral ambiguity, and that's a big reason fans keep coming back. But in this season, the discomfort hit differently. It wasn't coming from mind-bending concepts or cynical jokes. It was coming from watching a family slowly unravel while the person responsible for most of their trauma got applauded for trying. That's not a failure of writing. It's a choice. A risky one. But one that left some viewers wondering whether we're still rooting with Rick or just watching the damage he leaves behind. In the end, Rick and Morty Season 8 felt like a therapy session with no group invite. Rick opened up, faced his demons, and even flirted with the idea of moving on, from Diane, from grief, from isolation. But the rest of the Smiths? They were more like emotional crash test dummies. Season 9 has the opportunity to fix that. It can shift the lens back onto the full family, give each of them their own space to process, grow, and maybe even push back against Rick's dominance. Because Rick and Morty isn't just about Rick becoming a better man. It's about a broken family trying to survive the multiverse and each other.